that it's Friday, end of the week, end of the semester, end of the academic year. So a big thank you to you all. You are our heroes today, making the effort of coming at 5 p.m. to meet with us. We have lots of things to share with you. So welcome. One of the things that I want before we go to our keynote is to invite you all. We are literally kicking off a big week, the Innovation Week. It's inaugural, so it's the first time that Iowa State is putting this together. And you are sort of the trailblazers because you are the 30 plus students who are going to take all the ideas regarding education forward. And we would like to invite you throughout the week to come and meet us at many things. There's 8 days fully packed of activities, all online. Once you register, you get this ticket and you can hop in and out. No one is checking on you. All these things that we are doing throughout this week are going to be recorded. So if you cannot do it because of your finals and your exams, you can do it later. And with your permission today, everything that we are broadcasting will go through a YouTube channel, so to be accessible to all your counterparts on the other side of the world. There's a lot of students enrolled on Ignite. Hello, everyone. It's probably noon to you, or good morning, everyone. And we would like to welcome you. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton to my dean, the College of Design, Louise RICO-GUTIERREZ. Louise, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you for giving me a chance, to introduce a great friend and somebody that I really, really admire. So if we could actually just go a couple of slides ahead. I always feel when I'm introducing people that I'm just in the way. People really want to hear about Anna, and I'm just in the way. So I want to make this as quick as possible. If you go to the next slide, these are things that you know about her. If you Google her name, yes, she is the CEO for Minka Inc. Go to that website. One thing that I will tell you is that you're going to find that actually what she's trying to do with this company, just like with everything that she does in life, she found an interesting problem, a problem that is important for many people around the world, and actually try to commit herself fully to solve it. In this particular case, it is housing for people that has some kind of mobility issue, mobility problems, and how do we actually make sure that they can actually live their lives on their own terms. So it was not about only coming with an idea on how to solve this, but she decided to go out there, create this company and go and create opportunities for people that have this kind of problems. Previously, she was a principal UX design lead for Amazon. And we all know that since she left, Amazon is not the same. Her work lives, in my mind, at the intersection of design, storytelling, architecture, immersive technology, envisioning game development, architecture, as I said, and interactive media. She's led design across a wide array of projects, including healthcare, education, civics, and workplace productivity. She's won many awards. Just a couple of years, the Alpha Lab from Berkeley and the Webby Worthy Award in 2003. And you should know that she, just like the College of Design here at Iowa State, she really embodies a comprehensive understanding of design, beginning at, with a BA in architecture from Berkeley, and then having a Master of Design from the Graduate School of Design at Harvard. She's also a graduate, and this is important for me, from the Leadership Tomorrow initiative in Seattle, which actually makes her a leader in the community and a leader that serves that particular community. And that is something that we here in the College of Design are very committed to. Thing that you may not know about her, if you go to the next slide, Anna, she is really committed to serving creatives and a creative community. She is the founder of Seattle's Pecha Kucha, and for what I've heard, this is a place where people from all walks of life, creatives, artists, politicians, business people, designers, of course, people from every walk of life will come, get together, and brainstorm about how to transform their communities into a better place. And many times, these things run out of energy relatively quickly. Well, she is running the longest, the one that has been in place for the longest in the world. At least that's what I read recently. And it takes so much energy to do something like that. And you're going to see how she can do it when you feel her energy in her presentation. She also serves in the board of directors of For Culture as vice president for design in public. And she also has been an advisor for the Seattle Waterfront Design Oversight Committee, which, by the way, is really changing the profile of that city over the past few years. We have alumni, Anna, and we have actually groups of people really committed to that initiative. So I'm really happy that you're working with them. I'm just going to finish and tell you this. We're going to be talking about superpowers all this coming week. And I will tell you what is hers. She inspires, and she can really inspire because she cares. She cares about our experiences as humans. She cares about our problems and our successes, and she cares about our defeats and our triumphs. I don't know what else I can tell about you, Anna. I'm really looking forward to your presentation, and I'm going to pass it to you now.
Thank you so much. I think that was one of the warmest introductions I've ever had in all my days. Thank you. Thank you. That was so kind. I'm just going to fumble technologically for a moment. I hope you can forgive me. We're just going to go ahead and share my screen, which I know I can do. I'm capable of doing it. And then, oopsie, I think I didn't do that correctly. Excuse me. Share. There we go. Okay, are we all good, Anna? Okay, excellent, thank you. So before I begin this talk, I want to thank Dean Luis RICO-GUTIERREZ and the ISU College of Design Interim Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Ana Luz, for inviting me to be here with you today. I also want to thank Jane Rongarud, Jordan Brooks, Evram Baran, Cameron Campbell, Ron Whitehead, Lori Mickle, and Nakuya Rucker for sharing their hopes, dreams, and ambitions for today's inaugural event. Community is the heartbeat of innovation, and I am so grateful for the opportunity to be here with you today. Since its founding over 163 years ago, Iowa State University has harnessed the power of technology, science, art, and design to produce generations of change agents that have helped define and redefine the forefront of innovation, not just for the state of Iowa, but for our nation and our broader world. The College of Design has been the beating heart of ISU since the founding of its School of Architecture in 1919. Through its interdisciplinary approach to design, the college has graduated generations of leaders across every design discipline, creating a living legacy of the college's mission with each class of graduating students. In its inaugural year, the Ignite Innovation Showcase exemplifies the college's commitment to design-led innovation. And this year's event could not come at a more pivotal moment. The coronavirus pandemic puts us on a direct collision course with our very notion of innovation, forcing a reflective stillness upon us while accelerating long-standing trends with a whiplash akin to a car wreck. The pandemic demands a reckoning, inviting us to reassess our accomplishments as a collective innovation community, shining a light on what we have achieved, but also making plain what we have missed and who we have failed to serve. In this moment of regenerative reckoning, Dean RICO-GUTIERREZ has challenged us to reimagine new hybrid places of learning for higher education after COVID-19, posing the following questions. How might we reframe learning spaces, places, and practices in our college communities in the post-pandemic era? How might we investigate, co-create, and locate places that can reconnect people and enhance collective well-being, teaching, and learning? How might we make learning universal to all students, reimagining our spaces to create equitable, accessible, and inclusive places of learning? To answer these questions, a further set of foundational questions arise. What is education? For whom is education intended? Who does education serve, and who is left behind? Where, when, and how does education take place? Who teaches and who learns? Who is shaped by our educational system, and who is shaped by it? Which narratives does education privilege? Which narratives does education suppress? And finally, how can we leverage the productive tension between education, whose job it is to cultivate, harness, and sow in the grand task of civic state-making, and learning, which at its etymological center literally means to follow where your foot will wander, and is driven forward by the relentless wanderlust of individual curiosity? The most powerful questions are simple. They are direct, and try as we might, we cannot turn away from the challenges they pose. At its most fundamental level, a question does more than demand an answer. A question defines a journey, one from which we cannot return. In the act of seeking the answer, we are changed. Our quest to find the answers to these questions will not be simple. To pursue them with honesty and valor will require the full strength of our vulnerability, the full power of our courage, the full force of our collaboration, and the unshakable strength of our innovation community, compelling us to ask one further question. Why design? The silent job of design has always compelled me. For me, it is this: to impart a sense of profound orientation and connection to the people who receive our work. One that says, we care about you, we thought about you, you are understood, you are here, we are here, let's be together for a bit, on this bench, opening this book, walking through this park, opening this door, looking across this landscape, engaging this interface, this screen. Essentially, design is an act of love, a big, giant love letter to the intersection of form, function, and meaning. The language of design is complex, framing a moment, an action, a landscape, and transforming it from the mundane into the meaningful, combining a scintillating, intoxicating mix of use and beauty. Design exists within an ecosystem irrigated by the intense creativity of others. Design marks the cleaving point between art, technology, business, and science. It is a fundamentally humanistic endeavor. Ultimately, design shapes action and at its best serves as a cultural change agent, celebrating the arc of human potential. Good design presents, clarifies, and explains. Excellent design transcends. Designers are a critical part of the world's imaginative engine, marking and celebrating even the most mundane moments of the human endeavor. The task of design is to imagine the future, being both parent and midwife to ideas and visions large and small. Designers help frame lenses through which we understand and communicate who we are and how we relate to each other and to our world, as individuals, as tribes, and as communities. As interactive design leaps from the screen into physical devices of every kind, embracing a transdisciplinary approach to design is essential. Though all design disciplines are united by an overarching set of imperatives and precepts, each design discipline is informed by a unique set of conditions, problems, scales, materials, and artifact durations. Urban designers look at the world in hectares and acres, openly embracing centuries as they imagine cityscapes, campuses, and public space. Architects design residences, buildings, museums, and skyscrapers, seeking to counter the inherent groundedness of their materials with forms that soar, float, and surprise. Industrial designers design to the micromillimeter on objects whose use varies from the disposable to the inheritance-worthy. UX designers frame engagement at the intersection of the digital and physical, creating interfaces across scales and dimensions that come to life with a touch and are propelled in a very real sense by the trajectory and heartbeat of our lives. An interface literally means the space between two faces, the space between ourselves and the other. A stranger, a friend, a feeling, a place, a set of knowledge, framing the ways in which we connect to each other, to our world, to our past, to our future. When we look at this definition at its most base level, then we can understand that interface design is carried out by all design disciplines. Buildings, landscapes, objects, experiences, and even stories are interfaces of a kind, shaping the quality of our connectedness. As designers, we work at the invitation of our clients. In partnership with them, our work channels the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of our society writ large, translating them into built forms, tangible objects, digital tools, and experiences. What we acknowledge and what we do not acknowledge throughout the design process reflects our broader values, good, bad, and indifferent. A recognized value is expressed, an unrecognized value is suppressed. It is within this imperfect vision that we give shape to our aspirations, creating landscapes of opportunity that are accessible to some, yet out of reach for others. This is true for design, and it is true for technology. Computational technologies are arguably the central transformative agents of our time. They have not only created fundamentally new tools and methods for us as designers, they are opening new pathways of inquiry, analysis, and creativity in the sciences, engineering, art, and business, with the potential to remap almost every aspect of our human endeavor. How we imagine, create, think, engage, move, model, assess, market, and manufacture have been profoundly altered by computation. It is easy to get lost in the buzzwords of tech: big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, augmented reality, virtual reality, robotics, the Internet of Things, blockchain, neural networks, and quantum computing crowd the headlines. And it's hard not to get punch drunk on the king's ransom of possibility these technologies contain. Revisiting first principles feels germane. What is technology exactly? And more to the point, what does it mean to be human in an increasingly technological world? What do we mean by digital? And what is meant by physical? And what do we mean when we say virtual? What landscapes of possibility do these basic terms contain? Far from being an objective abstraction of ones and zeros, technology has been profoundly human since the beginning, centered in creativity and the manifestation of imagined worlds and ideas. It is a story of survival and transformation, love and power, wonder and magic, defense and exploration, propelled by the need for human connection and the sheer force of human creativity. One can think of Hephaestus as the first proto-technologist. The disabled son of Zeus and Hera, Hephaestus was married to the beautiful Aphrodite and was responsible for creating the magnificent armaments of the Olympian gods. Hermes' winged helmet and sandals, the Aegis breastplate, Aphrodite's girdle, Achilles' armor, Helios' chariot, Eros' bow and arrows are all manifestations of Hephaestus' imagination and skill. To help him in his work, Hephaestus even built a flock of silver automatons, robots, including a tripod that walked to and fro from his workshop to Mount Olympus. The fire stolen by Prometheus and given to man came from Hephaestus' forge. And it was Hephaestus who created Pandora and her box as a gift of the gods to man, forever setting the stage for the complex role technology has played across the arc of human history. So what exactly is it that makes humans human? Understood from a purely scientific frame, Homo sapiens sapiens are characterized by an erect posture, bipedal locomotion, high manual dexterity, and heavy tool use compared to other animals, and have larger and more complex brains and societies. But what does this mean? It means that we stand tall, that we walk, that we move, that we work beautifully with our hands, that we make tools that give full expression to our superpowers, that we are smart, we are complicated, we build community, and while at the same time seeking solitude. And above all, we are curious. We are so curious that even paradise cannot hold us. With one bite of the apple, Eve shattered through the first Eden, a truly garden of wonder and delight. Establishing an exquisite trajectory, this first in a long line of adventuresses took a tiny bite from the apple of knowledge, and the original paradise, the first sphere of known experience, fell away, setting in motion a pattern followed by generations of her children, characterized forevermore by an insatiable curiosity, a seeking, a wonder, a lust for what lies beyond. Ever since this original rupture, we as a human race have been guided by the intoxicating power of inquiry, creating new models and new spheres of knowledge only to break and upend them, relentlessly developing new technologies and new art forms, allowing us to peer beyond the safe confines of the known. We create spheres of wonder. We center ourselves within their apparent comfort. Then we shatter them in our relentless quest for knowledge. Knowledge has always been embodied. It is first acquired through the direct experience of the world, through the combined inputs of our conspiring senses, not just sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell, but from the other senses, thermoperception, proprioception, and mechanoreception, just to name a few. Children are the most beautiful example of this. No matter the tumbles, the scrapes, the ouchies, they engage. They taste, they touch, they smell, they feel, and they point. That helplessly beautiful, imperious point of a chubby toddler's finger. Who can resist these magnificent little emperors? Fingers, digits, are our first magic wands, allowing us to experience and transform the world around us, bending it towards the shape of our dreams and ambitions. The senses do not operate in isolation. They conspire brilliantly to expand our known universe. To touch is to think, to hold is to see, as any sibling knows. I doubt there's not a person in this audience who has not said the following words. No, let me see it, as we point to the thing that we can see perfectly well in front of us. For to truly see is also to truly feel. Our digits, our fingers have always framed the opening salvo from which our creativity has been liberated. First, we made tools, and with tools investigated and transformed the immediate world around us, seeking to connect to the beyond. But it was through our imaginations, through the invention of stories and the memory palaces that retained and transmitted them, that our first means of time travel were truly developed. Fast forward several thousand years, an oral language became codified, each cuneiform mark serving as a mini spaceship, escaping the powerful force field of the now towards the future of another person's present, creating new realms, new spheres of virtuality. So what exactly does virtual mean? The word virtual emerges in the late 12th century from the Latin virtu, meaning a life and conduct of a particular moral excellence. Stemming from the French, meaning moral strength, force, and vigor, qualities that map back to the Indo-European root word vir, or man. By the 15th century, the word virtual had become distanced away from the notion of physically embodied character to take on a sense of abstracted projection, which it still retains to this day. Virtual came to mean being something in essence or effect, though not actually or in fact. To be virtual then meant to be not quite real. Needless to say, the notion of virtual space was not invented by dot-commers in the late 90s. It emerges with our coming of age as a species in the projected space of dreams and visions, expressed in the imaginative space of a reader immersed within the pages of a gripping novel, blind to the world around them as Harry slays the dragon, yet somehow still able to hear the dinner bell ringing in the background. But what do we mean when we talk about virtual space? What we are specifically referring to is electronically mediated virtual space. Space made possible by the harnessing of that great phantasmagorical life force, electricity. Imagine, just imagine how long it took for humans to capture lightning. For the vast span of human history, we simply watched in awe or cowered in fear as Zeus threw down his thunderbolts. And then, as if in an instant, with the practical acumen of that most American of Americans, Benjamin Franklin tied a key to a kite, and with a little help from Volta, Tesla, and Edison, the full power of electricity was finally ours. This same period saw another pair of remarkable transformations that continue to resonate today. First, computers stopped being people and began to be machines. And second, the farm gave way to the city as countless millions began the great migration from rural life at the edge of the frontier towards the more predictable and profitable serendipity of civic urbanity. These two trends trace two further arcs. First, the literal disembodying of the computer and its continued reattempts at reincorporation. And second, the rupturing of the ancient human connection between a person and the wilderness, breaking one of the central relationships anchoring our humanity. Our gaze, which once pointed upwards towards the heavens or out across the horizon, dipped ever downward towards screens, mesmerizing us with their uncanny ability to command our attention. For all their vast potential, computers have also become both vitally essential and also complicating. They connect and they divide. They simultaneously support and destabilize. It is within this complex framework of technologically fractured empowerment that we touch down today in a landscape that is at once familiar and disquieting. The intersection of the digital and physical, once a point of fascination and science fiction novelty, have become increasingly commonplace. A smart street lamp that just a decade ago shone brightly with the promise of urban transformation is now seen in the slightly dimmed light of experience, as we understand that sensors, obviously, have the power not only to sense, but also to surveil. Technology reflects the values of the societies in which it is deployed and cannot fix the problems of a society that is unwilling to fix within itself. As the digital and the physical worlds increasingly collide, a complex opportunity map has emerged, interleaving the freedom of unbounded possibility and agency for some with systems of control and surveillance for others, calling into question the internet's initial promise of freedom and unbounded possibility. The Klieg light shining forth from the technologically enabled landscapes of opportunity we have created also blinds, forcing an almost reflexive flinch as we inadvertently look away from the landscapes of difference they also reveal. Technology evolves along the lines of human desire to connect, to transcend, to heal, to celebrate, to explore, to be beautifully lost and exquisitely found. How will we connect people to each other? How will we create systems of meaning? How will we create new networks of relationship and therefore discovery? We will know that we have found the answers to these questions when the propulsive power of inquiry intersects with the essence of our own humanity. As an innovation community, we live at the nexus of the powerful and the less so, regularly working with clients and collaborative partners who often represent the top 10% of the world's 1%. Translating intent and framing solutions that collectively impact billions of people across the globe. We have tremendous access and translational power. We have remarkable privilege. Often this privilege is poorly understood and, alas, more often than not acknowledged at all. Our privilege is normalized, and we often forget that our agency and the vast power of our collective skill has been underwritten by a broader economic system that has systematically denied access to communities of color as a means of privileging communities of whiteness. So what does this have to do with us as an innovation community? Quite frankly, everything. The economic and social impact of structural racism continues to this day and has profoundly impacted our communities of innovation. The economic disenfranchisement created by the Interstate Highway Act of 1956, or the blatant redlining that emerged as a result of the Federal Housing Administration established in 1934 and continued unchecked well into the late 70s and beyond. The terrorism, violence, and labor theft brought about by Jim Crow laws established between 1876 and 1965 all set the stage for the vastly asymmetrical access to education, resources, and networks necessary for full participation in the innovation economy. As an innovation community, we continue to struggle for true equity, inclusion, and diversity within our areas of practice. This lack of diversity unwittingly legitimates data-driven biases in surveillance technologies and other data-driven analytical systems, generating systems of bias that mirror the kinds of prejudicial systems that exist within our broader society. For example, AI and machine learning, coupled with the vast power of cutting-edge robotics and automation, present a vast suite of transformative potentials, allowing us to reimagine everything from how we deliver care to how we navigate a city. As exciting as they are, they also represent powerfully instrumented vehicles for confirming bias. Why? Because technologies are people too. Because if the stakeholders are always the same, then the same sets of ideas, problems, and opportunities become endlessly instantiated, leaving behind a vast set of unrealized potentials to innovate with difference on the cutting room floor. The net result? Billions of people around the world remain unsupported and unable to fairly compete in the global marketplace. For me, this feels personal. It's not just that as a woman, I'm working in tech and more often than not, the only person in the room sporting XX chromosomes. Or that as an innovator, I can't help but notice the devastating attrition rate in the design and technology professions that have prevented thousands upon thousands of brilliant, talented young women from taking the leadership positions they deserve. I understand that at least I had a chance. Regardless of the personal challenges that I have overcome throughout my career, I have had through reasons of not of my own making, access to opportunity at a scale and quality that are simply not reachable by most. My awareness of my own story and its relationship to the demographic narrative that has underpinned my life, and by extension, the lives of those around me, has been gradual. I am ashamed to say that it took me longer than I would care to admit to see not only who was in the room with me, and to be reminded of the daily contrast of opportunity driven by gender, race, and ethnicity, but also to see and acknowledge who was not in the room with me. It is something that once you see, you cannot unsee. Across the arc of my career, there has been a persistent delta between the ideators in the room and the overarching demographics of the people for whom our solutions are intended. Why? Because the channels of access that were narrowly open to me remain resolutely closed to so many. The scale of the theft is vast. We are often more comfortable thinking of technology as a product of engineering and less comfortable thinking about technology as a cultural outcome, a series of products that intentionally or no reflect the mores and values of our time. The stories we tell and the stories we don't tell matter. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, through our scientific and technological genius, we have made of this world a neighborhood, and yet we have not had the ethical commitment to make of it a brotherhood. We must decolonize innovation to challenge the systems and structures that underpin our work, pushing the conversation further to consider the symbiotic relationship between the way that we understand ourselves, the way that we see and therefore experience the world around us, and how through those experiences we frame narratives about our futures, which subsequently shape the products and services that we create every day. We must come together as a community to become more alive to the moment, to our moment, and from that point of renewed possibility, reapproach our work with an enriched sense of promise, purpose, and potential embedded in the journey that lies ahead. Left to their own devices, the visceral demographics exposed by the coronavirus pandemic frame a future that is both predictable and unacceptable. If we follow the dotted line trajectory that they define and imagine solution sets along it, we will inevitably arrive at a series of incremental interventions that are simply not up to the challenges we face at the intersection of health, equity, and climate change as a global family. But what if we were to do the opposite? What if we were to rewrite Polaris? What if we were able to imagine a new constellation of bright stars to guide us, creating a star map that begins in the future and works backwards to meet us at the beachhead of our now, defining new, bold, transformative visions that alter our trajectories and reframe our leap? Can we envision transforming landscapes of privilege into landscapes of opportunity, radically expanding access to the tools of invention and creativity, increasing access to high-quality education in a way that is affordable and accessible to all, making health ubiquitous and illness an anomaly, ending global warming through inspired human intervention, creating communities that empower people of all ages and abilities to grow, thrive, and invent. These are but a handful of dreams. Do I think they are achievable? Yes, but only by working together. The devastating impact of the coronavirus pandemic allowed us 2020 vision, forcing us to come to terms with the cracks and fissures that threaten to break our human family apart. We are a nation divided, separated by a tangle of structural inequalities, yet united in a shared belief that a better future is possible. As a human race, the power of human invention is a testament to the power of our dreams. If we can imagine it, we can do it, not alone, but by working together. How will we learn to be a nation of promise? What systems of education will be necessary to bring our nation forward? These questions define a journey. The answers are in your hands. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Anna. It's just as I said at the beginning, every time I hear one of your presentations, I'm just absolutely inspired. So I think you have an audience right now that is ready to change the world. Anna, I need to follow your lead. Is it okay if anybody has a question, they can post it?
Yes, so whoever wants to talk, if you can raise your hand or use the reactions so that Rachel Moylan could see if you have a question, or put it in the chat and then I'll read it out loud, or if you have something that you already are dying to ask Anna. We open the floor now. We have a couple of, we have 15 minutes, Anna. So if you are comfortable that we can have a nice chat now. Okay, so the floor is yours. I don't know who would like to pose a question on the chat.
Chatiri has a question.
Hi, Anna. This is Sunny.
Hi, Sunny.
Thank you for an absolutely inspiring and actually quite poetic talk. I really enjoyed it, and it gave me a lot of hope, especially in the wake of the things that have been going on for the past few months, and specifically this week. Oftentimes we're told that as designers or architects or people working in design fields or built environment, we need to be hopeful and design for better human conditions. And then eventually when we're doing a project as students, we get tangled into the rut of technical details and not being able to build to code and all kinds of other important critiques. And oftentimes the point or the discourse of how we can actually improve human conditions through design, sometimes that point gets missed. So I would like to ask you two questions. One, do you have resources for students like me to point us to where we could gain larger perspectives when it comes to the global human condition and how we could improve that? It could also be like a reading list, whatever you have found helpful for yourself. And two, since you briefly spoke about being women in tech, myself being a woman in a STEM field, I would like you to highlight some of the impediments that women like yourself or unlike yourself have faced. What are some of these common impediments that you were aware of? And post-pandemic world, where we see a serious lack of labor participation in some of the other developing countries when it comes to women, there's a huge drop in labor participation. What are your thoughts about picking that up, or how could we improve that scenario?
Okay, thank you. Those are such good questions. And I'm going to go one by one, and I know I'm going to ask you to remind me of them so I maintain the thread. So first, in terms of resources, I'd be happy to send some resources your way. I will also use this moment as a plug to share with you our Design Impact Speakers Series that we're organizing at the Harvard GSD. We're doing a global summit on September 23rd, really bringing together incredible speakers and activists from around the world who are doing transformational change at the intersection of equity, health, and climate change. So I'll definitely follow up with resources, and I'll ask my community for resources as well, because it takes a village. The second thing I'll say is a comment on your comment about wanting to change the world and then being sort of halted or ensnared by the friction of rules, regulations, and all of these things. And that's just so real. That's why they pay us the big bucks, right? To navigate all of that and somehow not lose the thread or the intent. And it takes a lot of skill, but also grit and determination, and an acceptance of getting your hands dirty, getting scraped and bruised, and crying in the bathroom multiple times. That is a coping mechanism. I do it all the time, probably at least once a week. Of just fighting the good fight, picking yourself up, and having good friends and great mentors with you along the way to, pull you up and say, come on, let's just get back in there, try again. You can do it. You're going to find a way through. And so much of our work is iterative. If you look at the work of Frank Gehry, for example, I don't think he fully became an architect until he was 50. So lots of falling down and standing up and doing it over and over again. In terms of being a woman in a design field or a STEM field, unfortunately, the circumstances surrounding women in STEM and in STEAM professions has actually gotten worse over the last 30 years. And unfortunately, it's a very subtle shift. But the lived reality is you see tremendous attrition, not only from women who graduate university in the first 10 years of their career, but also women my age who get so worn down by it, they leave their careers far too early. And it's very important for all of us, men and women alike, to say, hey, we need all the brilliance that we can get to solve the challenges that the world needs to face. Inclusivity is not just the nice thing to do, it's the smart thing to do, because this is really our world on a war footing, trying to make sure we've got the solutions that we need. So making sure that we are being the colleagues, the friends, and the mentors, and making sure also that we have women in leadership position who can affect policy, whether that's HR policy, federal policy, other policy making. That's very, very important, and raising awareness around the struggles that women face. Lastly, in terms of the coronavirus pandemic and the attrition that we're seeing with women, I mean, I will just say it's been very, very challenging to balance being an entrepreneur and a mother with Zoom school. I honestly have no idea how women with young children are managing. I think the exhaustion is very real. I think part of this is making sure we're leaving space for women to be tired, right? And be authentic with how they are, because that's just part of the healing process. And it's okay to admit that you feel worn down. It's not permanent, but it's real in the moment.
Can I say thank you? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Not single mom, but almost. Okay. Anyone else from the audience?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So Anna, you went through a huge transition a couple of years ago, leaving Amazon and starting a company. This program is embedded in a larger initiative in the university around entrepreneurship. And can you talk about how it was like to take the decision, to make the decision, what the challenges have been, and how do you, in retrospect, feel about it?
So last question first. I think entrepreneurship is amazing. And I invite everybody on this call to give it a whirl. Even if you only do one tour of duty, right? Just do it. Get in there, try something. Even if it doesn't work out, and it mostly won't work out, those are the statistics, it's okay. You will learn so much. You'll be challenged in ways you never imagined and grow so tremendously. I think I would almost require it You know, if I could say, you know, it's one experience you should have, you should just take your hand at it. And it doesn't matter what you're an entrepreneur at. It doesn't have to be technological. It could be opening a food-based business, just trying to understand and really have that lived experience of being an entrepreneur, raising funds, putting a business plan together, and putting a product out into the world. It's very humbling, which is a good thing.
So that's great. So were you nervous, scared?
Oh, I'm still scared. Right? Can I get an amen on that? I wake up frightened every day. That's why I cry in the bathroom, right? Like they go hand in hand. I think being afraid is perfectly fine. And in fact, I think it's usually a signal that you're doing something right.
Any other questions from the audience? Do we have, I see a hand.
Before the hand, we have a question on the chat, Anna. I'll read it for you. So you have from the same, do you mind, Charette, that we ask first Harrison and then we go back to yours? Is that okay? Cool.
Yeah, no, that's, I'm perfectly fine, so yeah.
Okay, so Harrison, thank you very much. In a society that is infamous for putting profit over people, how can we designers and entrepreneurs work against that ideology?
Thank you for that. So this is a really important question. So recently, I gave a presentation with one of my project teams for the Village of Hope to the real estate program at the Harvard GSD, who were looking at social impact real estate development. And the reason that they asked us to come and speak with them was that the team that I'm working with, my client team, my other partners, are a combination of for-profit and nonprofit entities. And in both cases, for-profit entities have certain superpowers. They also have certain drawbacks, and nonprofit entities have certain superpowers and other drawbacks as well. So one of the things that's really powerful is how you interleave the two. And instead of thinking about for-profit or nonprofit, think about sustainability. What you want is, how do you create a sustainable entity that can sort of live on its own momentum, right? What is the right system for the thing that you're trying to achieve that will give it the perpetual motion that it needs to survive in the long run? And then decide what's the right structure. It could be for-profit, it could be nonprofit, it could be hybrid, something else entirely. But I think these positioning these things in opposition denies a more nuanced view that can be more helpful as we work. And then I will say it's very important to be mindful of money and of how we use money as a design tool. And unfortunately, that's not something that we talk enough about in design as we learn to become designers.
Louise, you saw a hand? I don't have all of you in my camera. I apologize.
I think there was the same thing. I was looking at the chat and there was people clapping. So that's why.
Okay, then I'm going back to your strategy. When is the right time to take the leap?
There's never a right time. It's always the wrong time. It's so scary. I would say just do it. You know, it's interesting. You could say, oh, it's the right time to do that is when you're young. You know, but statistically, entrepreneurs in their 50s actually are much more successful than entrepreneurs of any other age. Probably the right time to take a leap is sometimes if you have a couple friends who will come with you, and you can hold hands. And an even righter time to take the leap is if some of those friends that you have and you're holding hands with are different ages than you are. And I would say that's a superpower. Intergenerational innovation is outstanding. Every generation comes with its own wisdom, and you can do incredible things together.
We're 2 minutes to 6. We don't want to extend. If you want to stay, you are very welcome. And like an honor if you stay for our kickoff with Charette, but I just want to be wary of your time and everyone's time. Is there any last question from the audience? Any last thing that you would like to put forward or ask Anna? This isn't the last time you're going to see her, I'm pretty sure, but.
Well, I want to just say thank you again, Anna, because this was, it was incredible. And I want to just point out to people about the incredible intersection of circumstances that where we are right now. You're delivering your presentation in a land-grant institution. And for me, you know, this is extremely significant. For us, many of the topics that you talked about are not optional. I mean, it is exactly why we exist, why President Lincoln, you know, actually created this system of providing access, you know, to people, to education, to data, to opportunities to be successful in the future. And, you know, I'm not sure if we're there, if we've been completely successful, but I think the important thing is that we should never forget that it's our job to keep trying and get better at it every day. So for me, it's been a privilege and an honor to have you here today. And I hope, you know, one day we'll be able to bring you here physically so you can interact with our students. So go ahead.
No, you, sorry.
I was just going to ask everybody to join me in actually thanking you, and you're going to see a lot of clapping virtually and in the screen because this was it was inspirational.
Thank you all so much. It was such an honor and such a privilege to be with you virtually today. I so wish we could be together in person, and I would love to meet you all very, very soon in person in Iowa. That would be so much fun. We could have so much fun together. So I wish you all the best in your Innovation Week. It's going to be amazing. And I'm going to catch up with Anna and Luis and see how you are all faring. Have fun and change the world.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Obrigada, Ana.
Obrigada.
Thank you. Okay, Rachel Moylan, you are the other red person, and my other red person, okay, now Jane is there. I can see, you see a red background. There's where you go. Say hi, Jane. Okay, we'll do introductions soon. I just want to make sure that we go to the next step. Rachel, could you come online and guide us how to technically jump from one to another or how to continue?
We can actually stay here for the next 30 minutes and then we'll jump ship.
Okay, that's good. Then Louise, I will share my screen again and you will be, sorry.
So while we do the changes, I'm pretty sure you agree with me. Anna is amazing. She's a great designer, great thinker, and I hope she's the perfect person to actually start a series of conversations about what innovation, what design, what entrepreneurship means at Iowa State University. I think she's setting the bar very high. That is exactly what we wanted. She's setting the tone for future conversations, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Another of my heroes besides Anna, his name is Jan Gehl. He's an urban planner, urban designer out of Copenhagen. And one thing that he says all the time is that we measure what we care for, you know, and sometimes we mistake things like speed, volume, or price with the things that we really care about, that will be more around issues of opportunities to exchange experiences with other people, you know, quality in our lives, you know, and things like joy and happiness. So there was a question, you know, never let things like what is the cost, how expensive, what are the rules, always keep your mind on what you're trying to measure and you're trying to achieve. And it's not going to be easy, as Anna said, you know, but it's going to be really important that you keep trying, just like what we're doing right now. Okay, so should we begin?
Yes, could you just confirm? Can you just confirm, one of you, what you see in your screen?
I see the dome of the College of Design.
Okay, that is good. Then you are set to go. I'm going to mute myself and just let me know next,
Yeah.
next, and then off you go.
So Ignite Innovation, the future of design education or education in general, and how we're going to be talking about learning places and learning practices. This is what I would like to talk to you. And to do this, I'm going to actually ask you to go back with me 13 months in time to when we decided a year ago to basically move everything online, and our world went completely upside down. I'm going to share actually exactly the same slides that I shared with the faculty, as I said, 13 months ago, because the problem that we're trying to work with you to solve is very real. And the premise and the framework is the same that we used at that time. If we go to the next slide, there's going to be a couple of things that are probably going to be funny for a lot of people. The first thing that I want to do is I'm going to refer back to first again to Abraham Lincoln. You all know him, but this is one of my favorite quotes. This and something else that I'm going to give you as a homework. Google the Milwaukee speech of Abraham Lincoln, because that's, I think, one of the more inspiring speeches that I've seen in my life around design, actually, and social justice. Not the first half that is all about tractors, the second half that is all about social justice. But he said, "We can succeed only by concert. It is not, can any of us imagine better, but can we all do better? The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country." This was, I think, the year before. You know, the whole country goes into civil war. It is right before the Emancipation Proclamation, and he positioned himself to change not only the country, but the world in many, many respects. I'm not going to pretend, you know, that what we're talking about this is equal in magnitude to what he's doing, but it is essentially a similar issue. We had a before COVID-19 and then after COVID-19. In these past 12 months, there are things that we've seen that we cannot unsee. There are things that we've learned that we cannot unlearn. And it's not what you saw in your classes. It's things that happen in the world, in society, to your friends, to your family, to multiple people. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? Let's move to the next slide. At the time, we were a little bit naive. I mean, but the principles that held there at that time are probably the same ones that are at the core of the challenge today. We want to be able to care for our students, for our peers, for our faculty, for our staff, and to make sure that the mission, our mission as a university, our mission as a college, our mission as a department, it is not compromised. You know, we exist for a reason, and that is actually to give you the tools to be successful in the future. The moment that mission is compromised, then we should not exist. You know, the moment we feel that our mission cannot be accomplished, or we cannot accomplish our mission, then at that point, then we will ask the question, why are we still here? So we want to make sure that we work with you, and I'm going to just walk you again down memory lane to some of the things that we talked at the time that are still valid today. So next slide. Do you remember things like this? When actually there were 14 positive cases in Iowa, and actually at that time, probably I saw many of you in your design studios. I was making the rounds and telling you this statistic, and there were no cases in Ames. In fact, I was telling you, I mean, if you just this is going to be a geometric growth. I was saying maybe in 2 or 3 weeks we'll have 200. Boy. First of all, I'll tell you a couple of things. It took a little bit longer to get to 200. The following 1,000 came faster than what I expected. Our objective at the time was to flatten the curve. So let's go to the next slide. You probably saw this a great deal at the very beginning, and that is how to find the balance between, you know, our infrastructure and achieving our goals. Whatever is just like a flu, well, it's not like a flu, and we are painfully aware of all of that. Let's move to the next one. So at that time, and we continue to talk about social distancing, but I hope you actually catch that in the College of Design in Iowa State, instead of speaking about social distancing, let's go to the next slide. We want to talk about being social at a distance. And that requires, and at the time we talked about this, developing new rituals. And in fact, based on the presentation that we saw and on the brief of the exercise we're going to commit to over the next few days, is developing new ways of interacting with each other. So let's go to the next slide. And then when we talk about accomplishing our mission, I'm going to just refer you to a couple of the sentences of that speech from Lincoln, and that is, we should not be afraid of the complexity of the problem. We should, in fact, relish that complexity. Really, that's something that needs to inspire you and motivate us. You're going to find, I'm not naive, you're not naive. I'm actually not sure we're going to come with every single detail of how these problems are going to be solved in the next 48 hours or the next 7 days, but there's going to be the kernel of an idea. Then again, you, like Anna, and like many other people, if you want, you can actually pursue, and eventually, maybe that will change the world. One thing that is going to be critical as you do that is use this beautiful word in English. I really love it being a non-native speaker, disenthrall. The idea of, trying to freeing yourself from the weight of history, of traditions, of protocols, and all those different things, to think anew and act anew. So that is the idea. Free yourself over the next few hours, few days, and try everything. There's going to be a lot of paths that will go in the wrong direction, but eventually you'll find one that you like. Maybe other people don't like it, who cares? Just follow that path and let's see where it leads. Go to the next slide. At the time, and this is going to become a little bit more down to the core of what we're trying to do, we did a very quick 3x3 matrix. I still remember I had a lot of my professors that told me, anything that is worth thinking about probably can be summarized in a 2x2 or 3x3 matrix. Well, in this case, we're about to move everything to virtual world. And on one axis, we're talking about the technologies that we could actually use. Low bandwidth text-based, for example, things that will not consume a lot of bandwidth, so we could actually maximize access to everybody. And by the way, I'm going to confess, I was really afraid we were going to break the internet at a time. And actually, it was something that was in the minds of everybody. And it turns out that we didn't. Actually, the infrastructure is robust enough that we actually didn't. Then there is a level up that is multimedia and personal computing. So from text-based to image and video-based. And then there is something that is extremely experiential. I'm actually not sure if that is something we can actually put in a virtual world, but it was all these experiential technology. How do you interact with equipment? How do you interact with others? Yes, you can do part of that virtual, but there are some parts of that experiential, what you experience as a designer, as a student, that probably cannot be put in those terms. On the other axis, we have just a very simple, very classic numbers of the people that are interacting and how many people we're interacting with. Can be one-to-one, like a phone call, for example, one to many when you're broadcasting, like me to many of you, and then many to many when you have actually a group of people, all of them exchanging ideas at the same time. And then we put in the middle many of the things that we do, and it's not an exhaustive list, it's just examples. So for example, we could think that office hours, I could do them, relatively low tech. I could chat with people, for example. A desk script probably will require some more images and more multimedia activities. A class conversation could be a threaded text base, or could be, as we're doing right now with Zoom, something that we can actually do. There's some things that are really hard, and one of the ones that I have there actually turns out that it was not true. Equipment coaching, for example, what we meant, imagine doing ceramics. Well, it's really hard to do virtually, to throw a pot, if you're in a virtual environment. I thought that actually software coaching, because some of the software that we use in labs is extremely powerful. It's going to be hard to move to virtual, but it turns out that we could use these virtual servers, and you've experienced all of that over the past few months, and we can actually do it. So that was actually not accurate. But the reality is that we were talking about this, and we can move to the next slide, because as I said, I was, and we were, faculty were really concerned, first of all, about infrastructure. Are we going to have enough bandwidth to do all the amazing things that we can do on exceptional basis, like video broadcasting, all that kind of stuff? But for me, the most serious challenge was, can we make sure that anybody, regardless of their background, their socioeconomic conditions, any kind of issues, access to technology, could we make sure that everybody in the College of Design could actually continue to participate in our mission? Could we then work with them to deliver on our mission? Yes, I mean, for some of us, we take for granted that internet exists in our home. May have a little bit more speed or a little bit less speed, but we can actually see movies. We can actually see each other in some of these things. Well, that may not be true depending on where you live. I mean, there's still a digital divide, particularly in rural America. I mean, not everybody will have access to all these different tools. There's actually, we cannot assume that everybody can actually have access to the same kind of equipment that we have. Not all these different things were extremely important for us. So this idea, and it's not about moving your classroom to a smartphone, but it was, can you actually think about experiences that can be accessible to everybody? That if you have a phone, maybe we can actually make it easier for people to go through. And that is in essence what we're trying to do with the Charette today. We're going to go to the next slide. And these are the two questions that I think you've heard over and over again. They went in the promotion of this event. Anna talked about them, and I'm going to rehearse them. That is how we might reframe learning spaces, places, and practices in all our college communities in the post-pandemic area. That is the big question. And how might we investigate, co-create, and locate places that can reconnect people and enhance collective well-being, teaching, and learning. Let me pose this in a different way. Let me just do this. For me, think about how you're interacting right now with this particular screen. If we go to the next slide, and maybe, okay, I lost you, but I'm going to find you right now again. We go to the next slide. We're going to define what is the new, no, the previous slide. We're going to define what is, I don't want to call it the new normal. People call it the new normal. Well, I don't like it. I think what I would like to ask you to do is to think about what we've learned over the past 12 months, and let's commit ourselves to go what I will call a normal plus. A normal that has been enriched by all those experiences over the past 12 months. And I'm going to say it again, not only in the classroom, okay? We want to map out the complexity of our places for learning. Don't shy away of thinking about complex issues, reflecting on the lessons of the past 12 months and reminding enhanced context for future pedagogies, for many tomorrows, and for everybody. And that for me is the most important component. So think about yourself. The potential outcomes of the Charette could be on the physical space, on your side of the screen, are really the spaces where we learn the more appropriate ones. In fact, and I'm going to be really serious about being on this side of the screen, we've freed ourselves, a very particular, precise place to be. Can we think about new spaces, and what are those spaces where we can actually learn? How many of you took a class, for example, out there under a tent? I'm hoping that a few of you liked it. Maybe you didn't. But can we rethink the places where we're learning? Remember that many of us, you are learning right now in spaces in your home. Do we need to think about something like that? In fact, see it the other way. I mean, the faculty that are in the call right now, they are teaching, from their homes. It's been a huge process of adaptation. Is there anything that we can do on that side of the screen to talk about it? Can you think about that really thin virtual, really thin line between the physical and the virtual space? What are the interactions that could happen? How can we facilitate that connection between one side and the other? And I'm going to try to do this, but have you seen those movies, where people is trying to reach to the other side? There's this, proverbial finger that touches a membrane and then appears on the other side, looks like water and all that kind of stuff. Well, that is the other potential outcome of this. What does that mean, to touch that membrane that divides these different dimensions, and make it in a way that is easy, that is natural to move from one to the other? So what are the kinds of interactions that you've experienced work or not work? And is there another way of thinking about it on the other side? And then on the other side of the screen, again, can you make suggestions? You're going to have faculty that is going to be working with you, but you're the learners. Are there new experiences that you feel we could be doing with you, to enhance this learning space? Are there new ways of delivering content for you, delivering experiences for you that you want to actually embark in? And by the way, you don't have to do everything in one. In fact, I will recommend that you begin very wide at the beginning. Then, as I said, choose a path. Doesn't matter if other people like it or not. You just need to find, as Anna said, a couple of people who want to be in that journey with you. And then actually just explore it. And at the end, we're going to have a ceremony on Thursday where, unfortunately, we'll go through a period of review and, we'll create some awards. In my mind, all of you are going to be winners because of the experience, but one will be, some will be selected and some will not. But as Anna said, there's probably equal value for the people that wins and the people that will not, because you will end up with much more knowledge to then try again. And there's going to be multiple opportunities. That's why, we're starting this series and these activities, multiple opportunities still this year and next year in the university, if you're still here and out there in life, to actually go through the same process. Okay, so this is how I'm thinking about what is going to happen in the next few hours. Anna, I want to just put the final slide. And I'm not inspirational as Anna, but I'm going to just leave you with a couple of things. There are many definitions of design. They're very technical definitions of design. This idea of taking a present state and moving it to a desired one. But for me, one important characteristic of design is that it has disproportionate impact. This butterfly effect that designers have of coming with an idea, kind of just like give it a little bit of a push, and then it can actually fly and change the world, is something that is really important. Don't be scared that it's a small move, because that small move will become waves, or as they said, a hurricane on the other side of the world or on the other side of history. So that for me is important for design. And then the other one is the inspiration that I get from, Don Quixote, the idea that designers fight windmills, the battles that nobody else thinks that are even reasonable, and actually we succeed. So thank you for spending time with us, and I'm really looking forward to keep working with you over the next hours and days. Anna, what do we do now?
Video, let me start this. Thank you.